Welcome to Detroit. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass. You can drown them. And that's what we gotta be. That's who we have to be. Because that's our domain. That is our domain. Because we'll tread water as long as it takes to fucking bury you.
Takes the snap, turns, gives to Montgomery, right side, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions! Yes.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving on in. So folks, as we all know, the Lions are getting set to play against the Cincinnati Bengals at 4:25 Eastern Standard Time this Sunday. It's a game that I've already talked about a little bit. Both sides of the ball have talked about what we can possibly expect on offense. I've talked about what we can possibly expect on defense. And I've already given a little bit of a preview, if you will, for both of those units. But for me, when you start talking about overall units, the one thing you also have to talk about is how the superstars perform within those units. What exactly can we expect from them? Because obviously, when you are playing a game, you can always talk about all the other players that are out on the field, and you know all their names, but the ones that everybody's going to obviously be paying attention to are the superstars. They're the ones that you're going to want to get an indicator of how they're going to play, which is going to give you an indication about how the whole team is going to play. And if you've been paying attention to how I've been talking about this for the last, 48 hours, so to speak, I've pretty much given the impression, at least from what I have been able to witness in terms of, the stats, the comparative analysis, understanding what the Bengals have got coming in for this game, what we've got coming in for this game. As far as I'm concerned, I'm not going at all to be surprised if this game winds up being a 50-plus burger for the Lions, and I also wouldn't at all be surprised if the Lions wind up winning this game by some ridiculous number amount of 55-14 or 55-17, something like that. Because I look at the Bengals as an entire team, and as much as I don't like saying this about any one particular team, because I understand the thought process, and for about 99% of the time, I would agree with this thought process. You don't want to hedge your bets too soon. You don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. You don't want to underestimate an opponent. But I don't feel as if I'm underestimating an opponent. I feel as if I'm looking at what the Bengals have, and I'm like, listen, unless the entire Detroit Lions team just absolutely collapses, like they just don't even wake up, get out of bed, decide to show up at the stadium for the Cincinnati Bengals game, I can't see this game really being a nail-biter. I just can't. And I'm not trying to sound cocky, I'm not trying to sound smug, it's just I look at what we have as a team, and I look at what the Bengals have as a team, and it's like, listen, you take a look at those first 2 games that the Bengals played. They barely beat the Browns, much the same way the Packers barely beat them, yet we beat them 34-10. And then the second game, they had Joe Burrow for a part of it before Jake Browning came in, and they still, even though they won that game, Jake Browning did not play very well in that game. He had 2 touchdown passes, yes, but he also had 3 interceptions. So it's like, I'm trying to keep all this information in the proper perspective. So when I start doing that, I then start looking at what I believe we can reasonably expect from the superstars that we have on our team that are going to perform and how they're going to perform. And for me, we're going to talk about 6 of them. We're going to talk about 3 on offense, and we're going to talk about also 3 on defense. And I'm going to give you what I believe is going to be a somewhat, I can't say totally accurate or even 90% accurate prediction, but I believe it is a reasonable prediction because of, number 1, who our superstars are, number 2, who they're going to be playing against, and then number 3, just based off of what they've done over the last 3 weeks. So let's take a look at that. The first person we're going to talk about is obviously Jared Goff, the quarterback. Jared Goff is pretty much the engine of the offense. He is the guy that makes sure the offense is in the right play. It's doing what it needs to do as far as understanding communication, understanding protection schemes with the offensive line, reading the defense, getting the right coverage as far as the wide receivers, knowing what routes they need to run, the whole 9 yards. He is quite literally the point guard that makes sure the offense is running about as 100% efficiently as possible. So when I take a look at what Goff has got going up against him in this game on defense, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I really like Jared Goff to have a big monster game in this, in this performance. So this is my prediction for Jared Goff. It might be a little over the top, but we'll see how it actually performs. Because there have been times Goff has gone out and he's absolutely just destroyed people. And I think this is going to be one of those games. I have Goff completing 25 of 30 throws for 83.3%. I have him having 350 passing yards for 11.7 an average a throw, 5 passing touchdowns, no interceptions for 154.9 passer rating. I know, absolutely ridiculously gaudy numbers. But you have to understand something here. Number one, as I literally just stated, what was it, like 2 days ago? The Lions are going up against a defense that over the last 2 weeks, playing against Bo Nix and playing against Carson Wentz, they've given up nearly 500 yards passing to those two. They gave up 4 passing touchdowns, almost 70% completion rate, and almost 110 passer rating. And I literally said it then, I'm going to say it now. Jared Goff is a better quarterback than Carson Wentz and Bo Nix. And Jared Goff has had already a 5 passing touchdown performance this year against the Chicago Bears. Jared Goff has also had 3 games this year where he has completed 70+% of his passes. He actually had 3 straight in a row before he played the Browns. He's also had 3 straight games in a row where he's not taken a sack. That's in large part due to the offensive line that he's got protecting him, but it's also due to Jared Goff understanding how to maneuver in the pocket, how to escape pressure, how to step up and make a throw when he absolutely has to. And then, the other thing about it is, Jared Goff's chemistry and rapport with this offense as a whole, but especially with the playmakers that he has, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamo, Sam Laporta, Gibbs, Monty, the whole rest of them, I believe that chemistry and rapport is better on an overall level than what the Bengals have on defense. And having chemistry and rapport is something that makes a huge difference in units being able to perform. And the fact on top of that Jared Goff literally knows this offense inside and out and he has total command of it, I just feel that all these things, stacked one on top of the other, it spells that Goff is going to have a big performance. So that's superstar number 1. Superstar number 2, I have Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm not saying that David Montgomery's not going to have a big game as well. I think he could have a real big game too. But let's not kid ourselves here. When it comes between Sonic and Knuckles, Sonic is more of the top billing prospect than Knuckles is. Knuckles will have a couple of games like the game against the Ravens where he just absolutely goes off. But if you're talking about more of who is the consistent back at this point, it's definitely Jahmyr Gibbs. And for me, it's like, okay here, Jahmyr Gibbs just literally had a game against the Browns, who have the best defense rush-wise in the entirety of the NFL, because up until that point, we had not seen the Browns giving up 100+ yards rushing against any offense. And yet Gibbs by himself almost had 100 yards rushing. So for me, I have Jahmyr Gibbs running the ball for 15 times for 100 yards even, for 6.7 an average a rush, with 1 rushing touchdown. But I also have him having 175 all-purpose yards, with the other 75 coming from receiving yards. I have him having 7 receptions with 1 receiving touchdown. So another monster performance by Jahmyr Gibbs. Pretty much, he's going to get the ball a lot in this game. And the reason why I think that's going to happen is because I've taken a look at how the last couple of games the Bengals defense has performed against running backs coming out of the backfield. They've not been very good. They've not been able to stop them. They've not been able to, number one, stop them in terms of getting yards on the ground, but also through the air and touchdowns on the ground and through the air. And I'm just going to say it right now. Jahmyr Gibbs, in my honest opinion, is probably the best overall running back in the NFL when it comes from being a dual threat back. Then, on top of that, like I already said, the Bengals can't stop the run to save their life. I think they're ranked 32nd in damn near virtually everything based upon what I said yesterday. And, for crying out loud, Gibbs is the most explosive running back in the NFL. There is virtually no linebacker that can keep up with him. Hell, there are a lot of cornerbacks that can't keep up with him. And with that makes him a matchup nightmare, especially when you consider how our offensive line has gotten better and better and better each week in terms of being able to open up rushing lanes for him. So again, I expect a big performance from Gibbs as well. Now we move to the third offensive superstar, which for me is, without a shadow of a doubt, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Again, pretty much when it comes to the Lions, their offensive success is like, listen, if you get Amon-Ra St. Brown going, if you get Jahmyr Gibbs going, if Jared Goff gets going, you're going to most likely win the game. And it's no different in this one. Because for me, for Amon-Ra St. Brown, I have him having 10 receptions out of 12 targets for 115 yards, 11.5 an average a catch, and I think he's going to continue his game of, having multiple touchdowns in a game. I think he's going to have 2 receiving touchdowns. And the reason why I think that, other than what I already said with Goff, is that 2 of the Bengals cornerbacks, when I checked PFF, they have a sub-60 coverage grade from PFF over the entire course of the season so far. So 2 of their starting cornerbacks out of the, 3 base nickel package that they have are pretty damn bad. And Amon-Ra St. Brown is one of the most savvy, one of the most precise route runners in the entirety of the NFL. Plus, on top of that, him and Goff have a chemistry that I don't think any other wide receiver quarterback combo in the NFL has. Plus, on top of that, Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown have connected for 6 passing touchdowns in 4 games. That leads the NFL. In fact, I think I remember reading this somewhere. I think the stat combination that Amon-Ra St. Brown has over the first 4 games of the year, that combination of stats has not been accomplished since 2007 with Randy frickin' Moss. So when you think about that, the Bengals' ability to try to cover him is going to be a problem. And since it's almost always a problem for every defense that tries to cover him, that's not only going to open up opportunities for Amon-Ra St. Brown, it's going to open up opportunities for all the other receiving options and weapons that the Lions have. Like I just said with Jahmyr Gibbs, but also Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, so on and so forth. So those are my offensive superstars. Now we're going to get to the defensive ones, which the defensive ones, you could look at this a number of ways, but it all starts with Hutch. And I honestly think that Hutch is going to have a 3-sack game this Sunday. I really do. And the reason why I think that is, number one, the Bengals' offensive line, we've already known it. It sucks. I'm going to say this right now. Thank you, Cincinnati, for drafting Ja'Marr Chase so that way we could get Penei Sewell, because we literally got the best offensive line talent in the generation with that number, what was it, the number 7 or number 8 overall pick at that draft. I'm absolutely thankful the Cincinnati Bengals passed on Penei Sewell, because I'll tell you this, you know what, Ja'Marr Chase is, one of the best receivers of his time, if not maybe the best receiver outside of Justin Jefferson. But that doesn't mean a lick of, whatever if you can't protect your quarterback, and that's why I'm glad we have Penei Sewell over Ja'Marr Chase. And when you think about it from that perspective, the offensive line of the Bengals, it's just so putridly bad when it comes to pass blocking. There's a reason why I said over the last 3 weeks that Jake Browning has been playing quarterback for the Bengals, he is just outside of the top 10 for most sacks by a quarterback. He's got 7, which is tied for 11th most. And I think Hutch is going to, again, take a huge advantage of that. Because we already knew that the Browns' offensive line last week wasn't that good, and he absolutely had a monster performance, teeing off against Joe Flacco. Jake Browning, as much as some people might want to say this, he's maybe a step up, and a small step up over where Joe Flacco is at this point in his career. And then think about this. not only is Hutch, I think, going to have a huge performance, but I think because of the fact that the Bengals are going to try everything they can to try and slow Hutch down, which I don't think they're going to, that's going to open up opportunities for other guys like Muhammad, Williams, Reeder, and then maybe even our linebackers such as Nowaski, Anzalone, Campbell to potentially bring pressure and just get into Browning's face all damn day long. And what I think is going to wind up happening is with as explosive as I'm expecting this offense to continue to play and put up points on Sunday, what I think is going to happen is that the Bengals are going to get down early, and what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to resort to the passing game to try and stay in the game more and more. Well, the more that they do that, that's going to give even more chances for Hutch, Muhammad, Williams, Reeder, the whole 9 yards to get even more sacks and continue to ratchet up the pressure. So I'm expecting Hutch to have a big game in this as well. And then for the last two guys on the defense, I'm just gonna combine them together to kind of a little bit save time because they're in essence in the same boat. And you already know who I'm talking about here. It's Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch. I would not at all be surprised if in this game, Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch, they both have an interception. Again, Jake Browning is not that good of a quarterback. He is a suitable backup quarterback, but he's no Joe Burrow. He's not going to be as much of a threat to be able to throw the ball that I think some people might be thinking. Even with T. Higgins and even with Ja'Marr Chase as the receiving elements, it's like, listen, you can't really allow for Jake Browning to have the time he's going to need because that offensive line is so bad. Which means now you can't really throw the ball down the field. Which now means you're going to have to resort to short passes that are like maybe 5 to 10 yards at most. Well, what that means is then now you're going to have those safeties that are going to start creeping up and they're going to start teeing off on those types of routes. And if there's two guys in the NFL that are better than reading, what an offense is trying to do based upon what they can or can't do, it's definitely Kirby Joseph and it's definitely Brian Branch. They are very smart and savvy in being able to figure out, okay, this is what the offense is able to do. This is how I'm going to be able to figure out how to play against that and possibly get a turnover. Because Dan Campbell has said it himself. The way that Shep has that defense set up, he gives those defensive backs a lot of free rein to be able to cover things because they're that smart. I believe Kirby Joseph and Brian Branch are going to use that free range to try and maximize their opportunities to, get incompletions, pass breakups, and potential interceptions. And again, if the pass rush does what I think it's going to do, it's going to force Browning to make some really ill-advised throws. And when you got Kirby and Brian back there just absolutely, roaming around all over the place, it really spells a bad day for the Bengals offense. It really, really does. But anyway, folks, that's kind of like my last little, kind of preview as far as what I'm going to say as far as, the statistics, as far as the players. If anything else comes up or thinks about, I'll add to it, but I really can't think of much more because, again, I'm just looking at this and I'm not trying to be smug like I said, but I can't see a way that the Lions just absolutely collapse against the Bengals. Again, unless they just take a huge hibernation nap and just decide not to show up to the game, I expect the Lions are going to win by like 25, 30 plus points. It's just that ridiculous. And again, I'm willing to bet you this, that when the Vegas odds come out, the Lions are probably going to be like 10 plus point favorites. Because it's like, dude, this is an offense that has scored 30 plus points over the last 3 weeks. They're averaging 40 plus points over the course of the year or over the course of the last 3 games. Their defense has gotten better and better each and every week. They have become a top 10 turnover machine. They're ranked tied second in the NFL in sacks, so it's like everything is just in the Lions' favor to win this game. But anyway, folks, I've come to the end of my episode, so I'm going to end it and say thank you all for watching another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage y'all to watch the next episode. Also encourage y'all to do this, like, comment, and subscribe to the episode. If by chance you did enjoy the content, again, I do hope that you'll subscribe. But if you just subscribed and you've not yet had a chance to do so, or you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, please, by all means, I want to highly encourage y'all, make sure you hit that bell notification icon so you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Hope y'all got something in your life that makes you happy, makes you smile. God bless, my friends, and until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.